game, there's really not a whole lot to really get into other than the fact that Carolina can compete, because we've seen them compete with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's coming off a heartbreaking loss themselves. They lost at home to Louisville in overtime on Tuesday night, so they're going to be a little beat up on themselves. And so I think that the biggest factor for Carolina is, I think one of the things, how do you handle an environment? This is going to be probably the second toughest environment you've played in all year, probably right behind the Gonzaga environment. How does a young, struggling team handle? Because we've seen Carolina go up there when Pittsburgh first came into the ACC and get steamrolled. And a lot of it's because they were physically rattled by the Oakland Zoo, one of the best student sections in college basketball. If they can handle the emotion in the building and that first initial punch from Pittsburgh, they've got a pretty good shot to hang around and give themselves a chance.
Yeah, you talk about that environment. That's one of those more underrated ones in the conference that you just don't feel like a whole lot of people talk about. But, again, we've said it, and, I hate to keep, really kind of harping on that, because it really just sounds like at that point you're just kind of ranking on a team. But this Pittsburgh team really isn't all that great. This is one of the easier games that you're going to have remaining on your schedule, which now really just lacks those games that you're going to look at and say, okay, well, this should be a win, this should be a win, and this should be a win. This is one of those games where you feel like if you're going to turn this thing around, you've got to be able to find a way to do it in this game. And, it's going to be interesting. If they do have Cole Anthony on the floor, I think the confidence level will be higher. If not, even just having Jeremiah Francis potentially back and, having B-Rob out there, which we didn't know if they were going to be able to have him out there at one time, will be huge for this team. And, again, it's going to go through. You talked about Garrison Brooks and what he's done this year, taking a step forward. It's got to go into the post. And against Pittsburgh in the first half of that game a week and a half ago, that was exactly what happened. It worked out so well for Carolina. In the second half, they weren't aggressive enough getting it inside. Pittsburgh also did a good job of taking that away, but you really need to see some consistency from the guys inside. You want to see Garrison Brooks bounce back from what was, not a great performance, but still an okay performance against Clemson. You want to see him get back to the way he was playing the prior two games. And then for Armando Bacot, that's the guy that I think is the key in this game. Can he build on what he did against Clemson? Because against Clemson, he looked really good. And that's the first time that we've really been able to say for a full game that we liked what we saw from Armando Bacot in both halves. So I think that, it's a confidence thing for Carolina going in. Where is their mindset at? You've had a little bit of time to kind of recollect yourselves. Hopefully you've let that Clemson loss go. Yeah, it stinks, but eventually it was going to come to an end, that streak, so don't really beat yourself up. That team went on to beat Duke. So, look, it's not like they're a god-awful team like we thought they were. So, I think Carolina, if they come out with that mindset, they have a chance to win this game, and I think they will do that.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get to the prediction part of this preview. I'll go first. I'm not allowed to pick Carolina to win. I made the comment when we previewed Clemson that if they lost, I would pick them to lose every game the rest of the way. And so after 1 week, I'm sticking to my guns. I think Pittsburgh wins. I'm a little bit higher on Pittsburgh as a team than you are. I really like the young pieces of McGowan and Xavier Johnson. I think they're going to give Carolina fits once again. And I just think, Pittsburgh has a chance to get back in the tournament this year with the kind of bubble that it's going to have for the NCAA selection committee. You get 2 wins over Carolina, albeit Carolina isn't great. It's still going to be taking into effect the name on the front of their jersey. That's going to help them. Capel's trying to build that program back to where it was back earlier in part of this decade when Jamie Dixon was there. A home win over Carolina does that. So I think Carolina continues to take I think we're going to see some positive stuff again, where you're going to see improvements as a team, individually from certain players. I think it's going to fall up short, and it's going to be a 4th straight loss in ACC play.
Yeah, I go the other direction. Like I said just a minute ago, I'm going to take Carolina. I just think, look, at this point, if you don't realize it at this point, I don't really know what else you need. You've got to find a way to win these types of games. I think Carolina knows that. I think, the boost of having a guy, even if it's, like I said, just if it's Jeremiah Francis, just having that guy on the floor is going to help. And I really feel like at some point, just the Roy Williams factor is going to have to kick in with these guys. Eventually, that's going to be enough. I think this might be the game where it is. No offense, and you bring up some great points. I think Pittsburgh's got some really good young players. I think Jeff Capel, I know that he's the guy that was a former Duke. He used to be on Coach K's staff. But look, I think he's a pretty good coach. I think he's really going to be able to get things turned around there. I just think they're probably a year or two away. They're still just a really, really young team and don't really have that size inside. So, I think Carolina gets the win, and it's going to be another one of those games where it's going to be a nail-biter. It's not going to look pretty. That's pretty much just what everybody at this point has to come to terms with. But I think Carolina gets the win, and it'll be an important one that hopefully can give this team a little bit of confidence for whenever Cole Anthony returns, and it might be in this game. So we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Well, I hope you're right. That's the Pittsburgh game, noon tomorrow on ESPN. That wraps up the preview portion of this podcast, and really we're going to shut this podcast down right now. We've got a couple things before we let you go. Before we get out of here, we've got to talk about the HeelToughBlog.com. A lot of great stuff on the website. We've got, Clemson stuff on there. If you want to go back and look back what went wrong against Clemson, we've got an update on Brandon Robinson status for this game football-wise. Anthony's got you covered. Another Tar Heel entered the transfer portal earlier this week. Go read about who that player was and what it means for that position heading into what's going to be a very fun spring football portion for Carolina football. And also, Anthony's got his top storylines regarding Carolina football. So go check that out on HeelToughBlog.com. Also, Anthony and I at our job, we got something that's in the works that we're going to be launching pretty soon. Anthony, how about you give a little tease about what Tar Heel fans, really what sports fans can expect coming up, hopefully within the next week or so?
Well, it's going to be something that is really exciting. It's a group called QC Broadcasting, and we're basically going to be able to give you some, all the podcasts you want to listen to, and as well some live streaming events that are going to be on that site as well. So it's really going to be just an overall great package that you guys can go ahead and look at. We're going to be sharing it on all of these platforms and everything, just so that you guys can find out, a little more about that. And it's going to be really exciting because not only are you going to be able to listen to both my podcast, the Heel Tough Blog podcast, and this podcast, the Roy's Voice podcast for Carolina football and basketball, but if you're a Panthers fan, we're going to be trying to lock down a Panthers podcast on there, at least one, maybe more, as well as Charlotte Hornets podcast, Carolina Hurricanes podcast, all sorts of great stuff that you guys can listen to on there. So it's something that we're really excited about. We think it's going to be something huge, and we hope that you guys will go along with us and help us out with that. It's going to be a fun time for us, and definitely a fun time for you guys if you like podcasts. We really hope you do, because if you've been sticking with us for a while, there's some other great people out there that are looking to get some recognition as well. So it should be really fun, and we're excited to work with all these different people that we're going to be working with here soon. Within probably the next month is when it'll be fully up and running, where we'll have all these different podcasts on there. Just keep an eye out for that, guys. Yeah, so just make sure you're following us on Twitter at me at Joshua Marlowe 5, at Future Tar Heel for Anthony, because that's where you're going to find it. And also, there will be a Facebook page that will be up and running. And once we get the website launched, you'll be getting invited. Make sure you like the page, and you'll be able to find all that great content coming up pretty soon. Lastly, we want to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you find us. We're on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're on every podcast platform. So all you got
got to do is search in the search tab, Roy's Boys Podcast. Find it. Give us a like. Give us a review. Most importantly, give us a subscription. That way you can get all your episodes in whatever site you use to listen to your podcast. We'll greatly appreciate that. Well, I want to thank Anthony for taking some time to come on here, talk some Carolina basketball as they try to get a big-time win against Pittsburgh. But most importantly, thank you guys for listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.